Hi there, this is Jen, and thank you for joining me. Today I'm participating in an event called Scrap Your Heart Out, and this is hosted by Tiffany Solorio. And up on the screen, you'll see all of the wonderful sponsors of this event. So we thank them for sponsoring this event, and there will be a giveaway associated with this. And so to find out all the information on that, all you need to do is check out the description box below, and that will give you all of the details. My idea behind creating something memory making was to create a card, but to make it something that would last for a long time and that would stand up and be steady, kind of like a picture frame. And so this is what I came up with. I love mixed media, but it's definitely not something that I do often. I kind of dabble in it. And the base for this is a 5x7 canvas panel that's pre-primed. And the paper that I'm using is the Sweet Recollections paper by 49 and Market, which is a super awesome paper pad. I happen to have the 6x6. And if you didn't have like canvas panel, you definitely could use a cardboard or any kind of chipboard or something a little heavier. And it's just going to be covered, so it's just your base. And I've torn my 6x6 sheet of paper to fit onto this panel, and I'm just using some matte medium to adhere that. And so I'll go ahead and cover the fiber or the canvas board with that, and then adhere my paper pieces. And I will also cover the entire panel with that gel medium or matte medium. And so there will be 4 sides. There'll be a front, a back, and then 2 mediums, just like a card. And I will be doing the same process for every side of this. And so I'm just taking different pattern papers that I like from that paper pad and tearing them and then adhering them using that matte medium and then covering that whole piece up. And I just wanted to quickly thank you for joining me and viewing my video today. If you're new to me, I hope you will consider subscribing if you like what you see. And I would really love it if you would leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And as well, if you like this video or find it informative, if you could give me a big thumbs up, that would be awesome. I also wanted to mention that National Scrapbooking Day is May 2nd, so this event falls in line with that. And during this event, as you go along and view the different videos, there will be lots of different ideas and styles to view. There could be traditional scrapbooking or mixed media or journal pages or altered items. All of them will have a photo, so that is going to be keeping in line with like creating memories through scrapbooking. And this was a really fun project. I love being able to get out a lot of different not knickknacks, but a lot of different items that I don't normally get out when I'm making cards. So once I've finished adhering all of my scrapbook papers to my panels, I go ahead and trim off the excess, and then I'm going to take some clear gesso. These should be sealed because I'm pretty sure that I did put the matte over the entire panel, but I do go ahead and just take some clear gesso and cover those with that as well. And next I'm going to create some of the elements that are going to go on the album. And so I'm taking this Pink Fresh Studio die, and I just used 110-pound cardstock, and I created several layers. And then I'm going to kind of strengthen it up. I am going to go ahead and heat emboss it. So I take my Ranger Dauber, and then I'm going to use this ultra thick embossing enamel. This stuff is awesome. I had bought this many years ago and never used it because it is so thick and not great for, embossing sentiments and card making. But for this, it turned out awesome, and I think I might pull that out more often because it just gives this really like ceramic looking sheen to it. And it was so cool. And so after I went ahead and embossed that top piece, I glue all of the pieces together. And then I cover it with some clear gesso, just because there is the possibility that there might be water on it, and I wanted to make sure it didn't disintegrate. And then I'm just going to take some watercolors. And although it's very hard to see, there is a little hint of blue in this pattern paper and some of the flowers. And so I was trying to match that blue color. I didn't have anything in my watercolors that matched it. So I went ahead and I mixed burnt umber and ultramarine to kind of get a closer match to that blue color. And I'm just going to take that watercolor and spread it around my panel. This is actually the front of the project. So this will be, you know, like the front of the book or the book cover portion. And you might wonder why I'm using watercolor. I just was picking things. I have a lot of sprays, but for some reason I wanted to use some watercolor, and so that's what I used. I think that's the beauty of mixed media is, I mean, really, there's like so much that can be used. And after that watercolor has dried, I go ahead and take some Distress ink in Vintage Photo and go ahead and put that around the edges and then spread a little bit on the front. And then I am taking some white pigment ink from scrapbook.com. This is, and I'm just stamping that up. And because those items, the watercolor and the pigment ink, I didn't want them moving, I went ahead and sprayed my panel with this Grumbacher fixative spray. It's a workable fixative spray. I have read that hairspray will do the same as far as sealing it. And so I went ahead and sprayed that and then let that dry. And then I'm going to use this Tim Holtz stencil with this Strata paste, which is a very chunky, it's supposed to have mica flakes in it, but it's a super chunky paste. It is a little bit of a gray color, and I haven't used it on anything, so I went ahead and grabbed that. And then that frame that I created with the embossing powder, I went ahead and cut that into 4 pieces. I was going to use the entire frame, but decided not to. So cutting it in 4 pieces allows me to use more of those pieces across the project. And then next I'm just taking some white gesso and mixing it with some sand granules to give a little bit of a textured paste. And I go ahead and spread that over my cover. And then I take a piece of scrapbook paper and tear that and adhere that down. And then I'm using some Lindy's Starburst sprays in Opal Sea Oats and Cotton Candy Pink to add a little bit of color, and spraying it every once in a while to distribute that color around the panel. And once I was done, I cut a lot of this out because I don't end up using it, but I put all of these elements on it and it looks so busy, and I didn't like it. And so I took off a lot of the elements and left this right here. So this is what's left. And then I decided to go ahead and move on to making the binding portion of the book. And so what I'm doing is getting a piece of heavy cardstock and I'm scoring it every 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to fold over kind of like we did in grade school. If you were in school during the 70s or 80s like me and made paper fans, this is kind of the same idea. You're just scoring it and then folding it over and under, over and under. So this will be the binding portion of the book to hold it together. And so I go ahead and just trim that paper down to fit the book. And to kind of bind it together, I'm using both masking tape and drywall tape. So I put the masking tape first on one side, or the front cover, and then I'm taking the double-sided adhesive, and that's how I will be adhering the book, like the top and the bottom of the book together. So I take that double-sided adhesive and line that up with the edge of the panel and push it together. And then I will do the same on the other side and adhere the I don't know if I'm working on the front or the back. So for me, when I was doing this, I was originally going to do all the panels and then bind it. And then I thought that might be too difficult if I had a lot of dimension and didn't want to kind of mess with it. So I just did the front cover and then bound it. And it was, I think it was a little bit easier. I don't know if I do the same again, but once I have those pieces adhered together. Then I take another piece of the masking tape and put it on the back side of the book and just fold it over and kind of push that sticky side of the tape in so it grabs the back side of that paper binding. The binding I used, I believe, a Michael's 110-pound cardstock. And so this way, traditionally, I think when you're making an album, these little kind of accordion spaces are used to add more pages. I'm just using it as a binding though. And I really love how it worked out, and it's super strong, especially after I cover it as well with several other items just to keep it held together. So here I'm taking all of the different elements that I either created or that I had in my stash, and I'm just laying them out how I want them. And then I take some black ink and I'm just stamping up the word mom. And then I put May 20 since this is a Mother's Day gift. And I will go ahead and adhere all those things with some Fabrifix. And then I move on to the middle portion of the album, and I'm just taking a stencil and some modeling paste and spreading that around. I've watched many videos on the layout of mixed media, and although it could be different for each project, there is kind of a general flow as far as the shapes, I guess, that the items on the page flow. And so like I've noticed that some of them are kind of in a cross shape or just a single like line, or you know, whether that's a horizontal or vertical. There are like a diamond shape, and I'm just talking about like how the items are placed on the project. I'm not sure that I accomplished that, but was something that I was keeping in the back of my mind as I was trying to navigate my way through this project. So next I go ahead and I take this Kaiser Craft stamp, which has, I think it's called Miss Betty, and it has like some different stitched stamps and some doilies, and I go ahead and take some gray ink and place those around both of these panels. And then I'm taking my Pitt pens and trying to color up a little bit of that distressed edge and adding a little bit of color around the album. And the great thing about Pitt pens is that they are workable for a little bit, not horribly long, but you can lay them down and blend them out, and then they become permanent once dry, and so that you can add different other elements involving water or liquid and it's not going to smear them. And then once I have that done, I go ahead and use the same two Lindy's Starburst sprays in Opal Sea Oats and Cotton Candy Pink to go ahead and add a little more color around the page. So I'm just adding the color and then spritzing it, or adding water and then adding the color to that so it kind of bleeds out a little bit. And then I'm taking my paintbrush to move. And then for the mats from my photos, I went ahead and took some watercolor paper and tore that by hand to make it look a little bit distressed. And then I did also distress it with an edge distresser and stenciled it as well with that same stencil that I used on these inside pages. And then I am taking the Opal Sea Oats to go around the edges to kind of darken those up. I do also add a green Starburst spray, but I do not recall what that color that was. And so these will be the mats from my photos. And from here, I'm just going to go ahead and add the different elements to the inside cover. I am using Fabrifix and it's almost gone. And so I have to take a popsicle stick and like really squeeze it out. And so I didn't include that portion because there was a lot of sticky glue just going all over. So I go ahead and add the elements to the inside and then splatter it with a little bit of white gesso mixed with water. And then for the back cover, I use the same stencil as I used on the front, and I am using icing paste for that. And then I'm just adding the different elements that I wanted to use, and that's a piece of burlap and a tag that's been distressed. And then I'll go ahead and work on the binding. And to give it a little more strength, I added more of the Fabrifix to the binding, and then I'm going to go ahead and cover that with this drywall tape. And drywall tape is a little sticky on its own, but I needed to help it out a little bit to make sure it adhered and stay adhered. So I went ahead and added the Fabrifix, and then I got out my glue gun to adhere this, mainly because I just got tired of trying to push that Fabrifix out of the tube. And so I got my hot glue gun and added some glue to the spine, and then I'm adding this piece of trim, and I will go ahead and glue that on the spine, and then I glue it flat onto the front and the back. And I add a few little different elements, like some little embellishments, some kind of like pearl flat backs and different things like that. But that will complete this album. So this is an overview of the completed album. I used a few metal pieces from my stash, as well as some decorative wood pieces and the die cuts that came in that same paper pad that I used for the main album. And then for the back, I just took a tag and I tore it and distressed the side, and then the sentiment on there and that decoration on that stencil is actually a rub-on that I had. And so that is the top view. And so the binding is the perfect size to go ahead and open and shut it, and the elements don't touch each other. And the inside is probably my favorite part. I just love the way it looks, a little bit better than the front and the back. So for the inside part, I used a lot of the die cuts from that paper pad, as well as some flat back pearls and some kind of pearlescent, or not, I don't know if it's pearlescent or iridescent flatbacks. And this is what I love about this, is that it stands up. So like I mentioned before, my idea was to make it like a card, but not a card, something that was more of a keepsake than a card might be, and something that she could set up on a shelf and have it be as a piece of decoration as well. And so I really love this concept, and I think I am going to try and do some more of these and improve on my skills as far as putting it together and the items that I'm using. So I can't wait to go ahead and do that. Just a reminder to go ahead and check out the description below for information on the giveaway and to find the other participants in this event today. I hope you like this project as much as I loved creating it. If you did like this video or find it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Also, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the video or anything that I've done or ways to improve. I really appreciate and love the comments that I receive, and I try and respond back to as many as I can. That's it for me, but I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend with me, and I thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.